Welcome to today's episode of The Heart of the Matter. We're bringing to you a young lady who has written a book called The Call. Her name is Chinedum Akiti-Diego. Let me start again. So when do you want me to go? You're going to count me in?
Okay, I'll cue you, sir.
Okay.
Steering, intro, pick up, action.
Welcome to today's episode of The Heart of the Matter. Today we'll be talking to a young lady called Chinedum Akiti-Diego, who's written this book called The Call. She's got such an infectious passion for the transformation of Nigeria. So stay tuned as we're back in a moment with Chinedum and The Heart of the Matter.
These things sometimes are psychology.
I think the sacrifice of the cost as one of the many was a God experience. Wanted to find God, simply feeling like you're in fire. It isn't always so.
Tell us about the solution.
As one of
People 18 to 35 years of age, not out of work. Hey, I don't have the skills for this particular problem to solve this particular problem.
none of us talked about the bread side.
Welcome back to The Heart of the Matter, where today we're talking with Mrs. Chinedum Akiti-Diego. She's the author of this book called The Call. I have read it, and she's also a passionate about Nigeria person. So it's our pleasure to be able to have a chat with her. Chinedum, you're welcome to The Heart of the Matter.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Now, I read this book. It really is about Nigeria, which is your passion. And one of the things that strikes me is that you've used fictitious characters to represent Nigerians. Can you tell us what was your objective in writing the book?
Okay, so I always deny that it is about Nigeria. And I say, because I mean, origin could
That's
be
going to
a
fall-
country.
That's going to fall on deaf ears.
Origin could be a country anywhere in Africa. So for me, I think that the driving force behind writing it for me was I'd done some training in a public school, and on the day we were finishing and I was asking them for feedback, a boy said to me, well, when it comes to my turn, I will steal. But I will not steal as much
he was
as
saying when it comes to his turn as
a leader. He too will steal, but he wouldn't steal as much because of the training he had received. Now, I don't know whether he was trying to make me happy, but he depressed me for days because I thought, after all the sacrifice and time, this is all he has gotten from this, you know, and I complained to every person I met literally that week. And one of my friends said to me, why is this thing paining you like this now? The boy told you the honest truth. Now, rather than for you to consider yourself a failure, why don't you think of it in this way? That maybe this your project needs more reinforcement. It needs you to go again and again. He says it has reduced. Maybe by the time you go 2 or 3 times, it'll come to 0, you know. And so in thinking about it, because for me, going to that school had been quite depressing. I don't know how many people have gone to local schools in Lagos. They can be quite depressing. And I didn't exactly want to go back. So I said, okay, what else could I do? I said I could write. And if I wrote, I could send the books to the schools. And perhaps if young people read it, it will give them an opportunity to rethink their hopelessness, their helplessness, and realize that, I mean, everybody is making the Nigeria of their choosing by our actions and inactions. And, you know, so that was the main. So I was writing to him. But I was also writing to my niece and nephew at that time who lived in the UK. And, you know, we have this joke in my house. My mom would say, they are Nigerians. They should come back home and build a house in their father's land. And I'm like, don't deceive yourself. These people have never been here. They don't consider themselves Nigerians. They are British, Americans. They're not Nigerians. You know, so in writing, I wanted to also create some kind of like interest, curiosity for them to compel their parents to bring them to Nigeria. So I was writing basically for people who were dear to me.
Okay. Now, you said just now that you were carrying on your project, okay? And in the course of carrying on your project, you discovered somebody that that it hadn't impacted. So what is your project?
Okay, so at that time it was called, it was a project. I've only done it that once. It was called the 10-Star Student Project. And it arose because I was invited to Green Springs in Lekki, and for the first time I saw that, oh, there are these kind of schools in Nigeria, and that particular school I talked about is just behind my house. So to me, as I was driving back, I was saying to myself, how do students from Green Springs, how do students from this school in Bagada compete with Green Springs? So to me, there was no competition. And I realized that whether we like it or not, sending our children to great schools, our children are just about 10%, max 20% of the true population of Nigeria. And so I say, so you finish training them in Green Springs, and they have to work with people who went to Ahmadiyya High, Bagada High, and how do they compete? How do those students compete without stressing the people you sent to, spend so much money on? So I said, okay, since I cannot address curriculum change head on, since I cannot address tools in schools, infrastructure, can I talk to this young person's mind? Can I help them create an opportunity for themselves? So it was just basic things: time management, self-management, discovery of purpose, so that was it.
I want to ask, what is Chinedum all about? What's your goal?
Okay, so prior to 2013, Chinedum was this high-powered, very driven, success-fixated individual who wanted to make it professionally. I was a Christian. I'd been a Christian, so HR, human resources. Okay, so I'd been in human resources in Maersk. I've been in human resources in Lagos Business School, Ernst & Young, nice companies. NACO was the last one I had been head of human resources there. So, I was firing high. And I'd been a Christian, which is for me surprising. So I feel that you can be a Christian and really don't give a damn about your nation. And so what had happened was someone had invited me to a class in Institute for National Transformation called the Oak Seed class. And literally in that class, my life just unraveled, because for the first time I realized that Nigeria wasn't going to become good because we prayed. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going to become the country of our dreams because we complained. We all had a responsibility to her, and so so one of the things they asked us to do was to, articulate, identify the areas, of the 7 mountains, that we felt called to. And I felt called to the education one. Because, it bothers me that, so in my course of human resources, at Maersk, for example, one time we were looking for 10 people. And we put out the whole process, interview, testing, for about 10,000. We didn't get 10. Yes, we didn't. So, and you speak to graduates who can't speak English, who can't write, who can't, so it's not just, so people say there are no jobs, but there are also not people to fit the jobs that exist. Now, interestingly, for that particular role I speak to you about for Maersk, the people who apply for those roles are not university graduates. In other countries, they are high school graduates. Mm-hmm. So our university graduates are applying and not succeeding. So after the, so at the Institute, the focus was on, you take responsibility for your own sphere. Do what you should do. Do it well. Do it with heart and might. Do it with everything.
So this is going beyond education now.
Well, okay, so my sphere, I took my sphere as education, but you see, when you get into education, you realize you don't change anything by staying in education. You need to get into some kind of advocacy. Okay, so I'm writing to students, but I just don't want to talk to them about life for today. I want to put into their minds the fact that Nigeria is depending on you, even though you are 16. How old was David when he fought Goliath? But when you see our 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they're not even thinking Nigeria. And they're blaming the leaders, but they forget that we are the ones who will bear the greatest blunt. Max 30 years, the leaders will be dead. You would still be alive, so.
Okay, now
Focus back on the book.
This book, what's the story? I mean, I still want our viewers to read it.
Okay.
But can you give us a synopsis of the book so that they have that excitement to go out and read the book?
Okay, so essentially it's the story of a family that returns from the US to their
country.
To their country. It's called Origin.
Is it an acronym?
It is Nigeria spelled backwards.
Okay.
And so they return to their homeland with huge assumptions and expectations for change and development. And initially, the father returns as a senator and assumes that he can do a whole lot. But like it happens to a whole lot of us who have good intentions, he was stumped at a point, and then he leaves.
Watered down, compromise.
And he forgets all about the huge ideas and the dreams and plans that brought him back until something interesting happens. His daughter is kidnapped. And in the case for his daughter's kidnap, his wife also has a near-death accident. It is their tale of awakening driven by their pain. In the course of her kidnap, the daughter, who is a Christian, had assumed that because she was a Christian, she was
be safe
isolated from pain.
There's still quite a lot of this story, but we need to go on a short break.
Okay.
So viewers, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment talking to Chinedum about her book, The Call. Welcome back to the Heart of the Matter, where I'm having a chat with Chinedum Akiti-Diego, the author of this book, The Call. And we were just talking about the book before we went on the break, so let's go back to talking about this book. You said, just before we went on the break, that you're looking for Nigerians to arise. That's the main purpose of writing this book, especially the generation, the younger generation. So let's go on a little bit more.
Okay, so Afia, who is the senator's daughter in this book, is kidnapped and severely raped. When she returns, as a family, they have the option, because they are wealthy, to send her back to America. But she makes a decision that she will stay, and she will make her story count. And so rather than, hide the story, they constitute some kind of committee and forge a way to developing their nation. Because of her experience, so while she was kidnapped, she was very confused, because she had assumed that being a child of God insulated her from trouble, and so she prayed, and to her mind, God didn't answer. So so the book just tells different tales about her going to different places and seeing how different people can be thinking and talking. So for example, she goes to an activist. There's a meeting going on, and in the place, people are shouting, "We will kill, we will die for this our cause." But in their minds, they're like, "I'm not ready to die for anybody," And she goes to a mosque where a teacher and his student are talking, because the student is confused. He says, this is our religion. We call it a religion of peace. Is it really a religion of peace if we kill people? And then she goes to a church, and a young man is talking to a pastor, and he's like, okay, how is it that we can pray for things that we want and work hard to get them, but when it comes to Nigeria, we just pray and stop there, So she has all these interesting experiences that force her to rethink her path. So she's young, but she insists that I will be part of this new development. So what I've tried to do is to demonstrate that all of us have a part to play in this new Nigeria that we desire. Young, old, even if you failed before, even if you think it can't work, we all have a part to play. So, I mean, I can't tell you the whole story, you can't buy the book.
And the book is only going for
1,500
naira. So you can get it for 1,500 naira. Now, Chinedum, I've had the opportunity of being in a group of WhatsApp people that you write to frequently.
Okay.
And when I say frequently, frequently can be more than once in one day. Okay. So, and it just demonstrates your passion. So what are you trying to say through those messages that you want to get across to our viewers today?
Okay, so this particular one that we talk about is called the Better Me, Better Nigeria project. A lot of times we're pointing fingers at people who haven't done, but we ourselves haven't been the greatest of people. So you might think it's fine for you to have a girlfriend or two and you have a wife. And that's not, in our mind, corruption. Corruption is the leader on the road. But we fail to see that by having those kind of dalliances, we cheat our family of our full selves, you know. So essentially for me, I was writing it for myself because I was trying to force myself to think about the things that I need to do as a person to change so that I can be party to Nigeria's change.
Isn't this kind of saying that to have a better Nigeria, we must first start with a better me?
Exactly.
Okay, so that everybody must first look at themselves. I think the Bible says that you accuse your neighbor of having a speck in his eye, but you fail to see the big log in yours. So you're doing this every day. Now, how is it a tedious exercise? Tell us about that.
Okay, so it's not a tedious exercise, but because there are other things I need to do in order to live, it's not an easy exercise, but it's an exercise that gives me great pleasure. Because when I started it, I said, if I just get 100 Nigerians to change the way we think, the way we act, the way we speak, even just within ourselves, then Nigeria will be on the road to a better place. Now, I haven't met the dates because I had hoped to finish that Better Nigeria project before 1st of October, but I haven't exactly met it. I think I'm outstanding by 13 days or something like that. So, but I mean, so that's just one of the things I do. I mean, stemming from this book, for example, one of the things we want to do now is go to secondary schools and maybe get them to act it out, because I want engagement. It's really important to me for people to take their own place of responsibility. You know how it's so easy to blame somebody else. I always give the example of before working with NACO, I could complain for Africa about Nigeria. And then I got there, I'm sorry for calling names. Then I got there and I was offered a bribe and I collected it. Now, I didn't recognize it was a bribe until after I'd gotten back to my office, sat down, and I said, what exactly is this money for? Now, incidences like that happened twice before I then took the time to go back and say, okay, these are circumstances that can happen. These are the things you need to think about. These are the kind of answers you will give, and this is the rationale for your answer. Okay, so a lot of times we don't think through things we do. So we all shout, Nigeria, Nigeria. Somebody will send you to go and buy something. You put 1,000 naira on top of it. That is not a problem. That is not corrupt, because it's you, you know. So, so I found that after that experience, I was slower to point my fingers. And, you know, each time I wanted to point my fingers, it was quick for me to say, what about you? What are you not doing? So it's so easy, for example, for us to say, the Lagos State governor is not doing anything, or whichever governor is not doing anything. But just outside your house, there's a gutter full of dirt and, you know, plastic bottles and what's it called? And you do nothing about it.
Yeah, so this message you want to take to young people in secondary or primary schools?
Okay, so in the first phase, which is what we're starting, we're going to have dates out by the end of this month towards, so we want to make it a competition. So, and we're going to focus on state schools. Okay, and the whole idea is I'll gift them a book and they would act this, so they will create the script, act the story. My thinking is, as they read it, as they act it, they're asking themselves questions. Because, even in writing, I know that Nigerians don't exactly love to read. So I'm not so fixated on it going out as a book. I'm just fixated on the message getting out to as many people as possible, especially to people who ordinarily think they don't have a hope or think that they cannot do much. It's interesting that, back to the Institute again, we recently did a training for youngsters in GSS and SS, and the feedback is phenomenal. You think these people can do it? They can do so much. I mean, their parents now start asking that, please, what did you teach these people? Because they go back home and they say, Daddy, this thing, you're acting like a hunter, like a hunter and not a farmer. Because that's one of the paradigms we teach, that a hunter just go out for what you can get. But a farmer is about cultivating, so you're not just instant, so for me, so originally, because I've been so passionate about unemployment, because I've experienced it, my original plan was to set up an unemployment project. And we had started on it, because what I was doing was, through the sales of the other book that I released 2 books at the same time, I thought I would fund that project. But, I spoke to you the other day. Oh, I should say thank you. And you said to me, who are you doing these things with? And I was like, well, nobody exactly. And you said you should get some people. So I got a few friends and we sat down together. And they said, you know what, this your idea is very fine, but it's too complex. Can we put it down to a small thing that you can check? And so we bandied about ideas. So I say to them that I think that 2 drivers of change in Nigeria would be entertainment and technology. Okay, so which is the one that I can, that we can pull our monies together amongst the 6 of us, that we don't need to begin to fast and pray or beg people for. And so we agreed on the drama one.
Okay.
So that's the next.
So you're going to have a competition.
Yes.
And you're going to give a prize to the best school.
And then hopefully we would enter them into the best one to, the short movie competition. Okay. So that's the goal. So we're hoping that on the 29th of May 2018, we will gift the winners of this thing. But the project will start after
this independence.
Yes.
Okay, I say amen to that.
Amen.
We're going to take another short break. Viewers, please stay tuned to us. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to our final segment of today's episode of The Heart of the Matter. We've been talking to Chinedum Akiti-Diego about her book, The Call. Incidentally, where can the people get this book if they want a copy?
Okay, so it's literally everywhere. It's at Latana, it's at Bataba, the list.
Okay, so we'll put the list on the screens at the end of the program. Now, Chinedum, I've talked to you a few times, and I can see your passion for Nigeria. And right now, Nigeria is going through the agitation for what many people call restructuring. Now, as a program, we're not politically partisan, politically inclined, but we do feel that we can make contributions about political issues so long as we don't do them from a partisan perspective. What's your take on this demand or call for restructuring?
Okay, so I'd address the Biafra issue head on. My father fought in the Biafran War, and
on the Biafran side?
He was forced to fight on the Biafran side because he was actually an Air Force officer in the Nigerian side during the war. And he says one night his commanding officer woke him up and said, him and another Nigerian Biafran, and said to him, if you don't leave tonight, I can't guarantee your safety. So they were airlifted and dropped on the Biafran side. My father would tell you that war needed not to have happened, and it was a waste of time, waste of people's resources, waste of lives. Now, with the Biafran case, and I mean, I've had arguments with some Igbo people who say to me, you don't know what you're saying. And I say, you know what? You didn't fight the war. So you can't make a call for a war you didn't participate in. But what I do realize is that no nation thrives on injustice. And we would be lying to ourselves if we say that there's no injustice in Nigeria. So for example, for me, number one matter that needs to urgently be resolved is the issue of quotas. The quota system.
In the education system?
Yes.
Okay.
But it extends to everything.
Okay.
To offices. People must compete for spaces on the basis of excellence, not on the basis of people reducing. So in a nation where our education systems are not enough, the institutions are not enough to take in people, you now lower the cutoff mark for JAM to 140 or 160. Meanwhile, people have over 200 and they can't get a space.
In other parts of the country.
Yes, so what are you saying? Are you saying that you value mediocrity? So I understand, I mean, because in the past, and that's the story, so we need to do research before we, take on things we do. In the past, the argument was that the North had less developed states. Now, if you have less developed states, must you punish me or should you work hard at improving yourself? And, so, I mean, the same, more resources are pumped into the North than into the South. And if that's the case, then it should lead to development. And there should be a time-barred zone if you say, okay, so we want to use the quota system to help. But we've been running this thing for over how many years? Over 30 years at least. So for me, the important question is we need to assess the things we've been doing. Are they working? Because a medical doctor in the North is still left with lives. And then you say he doesn't need to have 260. He needs to have 180. What quality of medical doctors are you bringing? So we need to get to the place where we're looking at issues not through the blinders of ethnicity and saying to ourselves, we want to be a better people. We want to do things well. So I say that, I mean, there are various variations of restructuring. But what restructuring means to me is that we need to sit at a table where we decide the basis of our interdependence. We cannot cheat people because as it currently is, the federal government collects all the resources, all the, the monies and shares based on population. Now, I'm sorry, even just commonsensically, you won't go into a project if you're not going to get profit. How do you inspire people to put in their best when you share the resources on the basis of population? If your population is much, work hard. Increase. I mean, and I hear this, the North contributed towards oil wealth. The point is not about, so it's not about sharing. It's about creating. We are in a season where we need to be creating wealth, not just for ourselves, not how much we can eat today, but how much our children, how much advantage we can give our children who are coming behind us, So restructuring is about us agreeing, look, what is the just and honest way that we can exist? I cannot work and then you make the benefit and you say, I should be happy, I should accept. It doesn't make sense. So I think that as a people, we need to be driven more by righteousness and justice than by it's convenient for me. And one of the things that I've realized in life and history is that when people push for righteousness and justice, the society is bettered. So for example, with the case of the African Americans, white people thought it was okay to leave them subjugated. What would we do without our slaves? So perhaps a few people in the North might be thinking, what if we don't have these advantages? How would life be? But I promise you, life will be better if the best of people, comes out, rather than asking them, you don't have to struggle, just do the least possible. So that's my take. And I love the North. I was born in Kano. I lived in Zaria. I mean, I was educated in ABU Zaria. So I'm not taking any ethnic position. Yes.
Now, our time is virtually up, and I've got one last question that I want you to answer in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Mr. President, in his national broadcast to Nigeria on the occasion of independence, said that this question should be resolved by the National Assembly.
Can it? I don't think so.
But the National Assembly consists of representatives of all the people of Nigeria.
Sadly, how many of us voted them in? So, for example, the local state government, the Ikeja state government, what's it called, LGA chairman, all he needed was 6,000 votes to be local government chairman. Already in Ikeja, I'm sure we're close to 1 million. Same thing. So it's sad that as a people we haven't contributed, so we haven't voted, we haven't participated actively in our political process. So we honestly cannot say that the
National Assembly
represents us well. But what I do believe is we've had several committees, several. I don't think we need a new one. I think we just need 5 people, 6 people representing the 6 geopolitical regions. They analyze all the committee reports.
We could be here for more than the 30 seconds I gave you, because 6 people cannot represent. Take just the South-South zone. There are many nations that compose that zone. So picking one person to represent the different nations.
No, so all they're doing is they're analyzing all the committee reports and presenting it to the National Assembly. Then we can go.
Chinedum, it's been a pleasure having you on the Heart of the Matter, and we would love to have you again sometime, but we've really enjoyed having you. Unfortunately, we've limited time, and so we couldn't go into all this. Viewers, it's been our pleasure bringing this episode to you. We will be back again next week with another episode of the Heart of the Matter. So until then, stay blessed.